What if the SUVs people ignore in 2026 are actually the ones that outlast newer, more expensive models? Because what looks new today doesn't always survive tomorrow. Modern SUVs look perfect on the surface. New designs, hybrid systems, digital dashboards, advanced safety features. But real ownership tells a different story. As SUVs get more complex, long-term reliability becomes harder to predict. Meanwhile, older, cheaper SUVs are still everywhere, still running, still in daily use. So the real question is simple. Are we ignoring the ones that have already proven themselves? Let's get straight into it. Number 10. Nissan Rogue. Older generations. The Nissan Rogue is one of the most widespread compact SUVs in the used market. You've seen it everywhere because it never left. It is not a vehicle built for excitement. It was built for volume, for accessibility, for mass market adoption, and it achieved exactly that. Because of fleet usage, rental company deployment, and family ownership, the Rogue exists in massive numbers across multiple markets. That high production footprint is one of the main reasons it still appears everywhere in 2026. Now, the Nissan CVT system has always been a talking point in automotive discussions. In some ownership cases, drivers report smooth long-term usage when maintenance is consistent. In other cases, especially under heavy or inconsistent driving conditions, long-term durability concerns are mentioned. Same SUV, completely different experiences, but despite that mixed reputation, the reality in the used market is simple. The Rogue did not disappear. It continues to circulate in large numbers because it is still one of the most accessible entry-level SUVs in its category. And that constant availability keeps it alive. Number 9. Ford Escape. Older gas models. The Ford Escape represents a different kind of survival, not because it dominates any category, not because it leads in performance, but because it remains available and affordable in large numbers. It survives because it's reachable. Older gas-powered versions are now heavily present in the used market due to depreciation and fleet turnover cycles. What keeps the Escape relevant is not innovation or luxury positioning. It is structural simplicity compared to modern SUV platforms. Fewer advanced systems generally mean fewer long-term complexity risks when properly maintained. That does not make it a standout SUV, but it does make it a practical one in the budget segment. And in 2026, practicality is what keeps it in circulation. It doesn't stand out, but it stays useful, and that's what matters here. Number 8. Hyundai Santa Fe pre-redesigned models. Before Hyundai moved toward its more aggressive, modern design language, the Santa Fe was mainly focused on one thing: practical, everyday usability without unnecessary complexity. No drama, no noise, just function. Older versions of these SUVs are still flooding the used market, especially in budget listings where buyers care far more about value than looks or modern features. At first glance, they may seem outdated compared to newer SUVs with sharper styling and advanced tech, but real-world ownership often tells a completely different story. Because once you remove the surface-level impression, what you're left with is a simple, easy-to-live-with SUV that doesn't overcomplicate daily use. And simplicity is underrated until everything else breaks. They are generally known for being straightforward to maintain, with widely available parts and servicing that most workshops already understand. That reduces uncertainty, and in the long run, uncertainty is what usually drives ownership stress. And that's the key point here. While newer SUVs are adding more electronics, sensors, and software layers, older Santa Fe models stay relevant for a much simpler reason. They just keep things easy, and in this segment, that alone is enough to keep them alive in the used market. Number 7. Chevrolet Equinox. Fleet-heavy models. The Chevrolet Equinox has one of the strongest fleet usage histories in its class. A major reason behind that is simple. Rental companies, corporate fleets, and large-scale service operations all relied heavily on it for years, which naturally pushed a huge number of units into long-term circulation. And that's exactly why, in 2026, the Equinox is still showing up everywhere in the used market, often at noticeably lower price points compared to many rivals. It was never built to compete in the luxury space or to lead in performance figures. Its purpose has always been clear from the beginning: practical, functional, everyday transportation. It was never trying to impress you. Older Equinox models continue to stay relevant for a very simple reason. They are familiar, easy to service, and widely supported when it comes to parts and maintenance. There's no complicated ownership experience here, no steep learning curve, and no overly advanced systems that make long-term use unpredictable. It's the kind of SUV that remains in circulation, not because it stands out, but because it stays simple enough to keep going. Number 6. Toyota RAV4. Older generations. The Toyota RAV4 is one of the strongest long-term performers in the compact SUV segment. Older generations continue to maintain strong demand in the used market because of one major factor: reliability that doesn't need marketing. Across multiple regions, older RAV4 models are still widely used at high mileage levels, often as daily transportation vehicles. Toyota's reputation for durability is built on long-term ownership experience across millions of vehicles worldwide. Even as newer SUVs enter the market, the RAV4 does not lose relevance quickly because it does not introduce unnecessary uncertainty into ownership. In a market where unpredictability is expensive, that stability becomes a major advantage. Number 5. Honda CR-V older models. The Honda CR-V is one of the most consistent compact SUVs ever built when it comes to long-term usability. Older models remain widely used because they follow a very predictable ownership pattern: steady performance, low mechanical complexity, and minimal unexpected behavior when properly maintained. There are no experimental systems that increase long-term risk significantly. That is why it continues to dominate used SUV listings even in 2026. It is not chosen for excitement or luxury. It is chosen for reliability and expectations. And that makes it one of the most stable survivors in this category. And now the list starts changing direction, because everything from this point onward is not just about affordability anymore. It is about SUVs that have managed to survive competition, shifting trends, and rising expectations for longer than most of their rivals. Now we enter the survivors. Not the survivors by price, but survivors by proof. Number 4. Mazda CX-5, early generations. The Mazda CX-5 sits in a slightly different category compared to the typical budget SUVs on this list. Even older models still manage to feel more refined than many competitors in the same price bracket. That comes down to Mazda's design philosophy. Instead of chasing oversized screens or overly complex tech systems, Mazda focused on driving feel, interior quality, and balance. And that decision still shows in earlier CX-5 models today. In the used market, this creates a very specific advantage. Buyers are not just getting an affordable SUV, they are getting something that still feels slightly more premium than its price tag suggests. It does not dominate any segment in terms of numbers or hype, but it survives because it offers something many budget SUVs don't: a more engaging and controlled driving experience that still holds up over time. And in 2026, that emotional difference is enough to keep it relevant. Number 3. Subaru Forester. The Subaru Forester has always been built around one core idea: real-world capability when conditions are not ideal. Standard all-wheel drive, practical engineering, and a focus on real-world usability all come together to make it a strong fit for regions where road and weather conditions can turn unpredictable fast. That is why older Forester models are still widely used today, not because they are the most luxurious or the most advanced, but because they are dependable when conditions are not perfect. In real ownership, that matters more than marketing features. The Forester continues to appear in high-mileage usage because it was built with consistency in mind rather than complexity. And in a market where complexity often creates long-term uncertainty, that simplicity becomes its strength. It is not trying to impress anyone, it is just built to keep going, and that's why it refuses to die. Number 2. Toyota Highlander, older generations. The Toyota Highlander represents one of the strongest examples of long-term midsize SUV survival. Older generations continue to dominate family transport usage even after years on the road. What separates it from many competitors is not a single feature or design choice. It is how it ages. Instead of dropping out of relevance quickly, it transitions into a long-term utility role. It becomes a vehicle that families keep using far longer than expected. That long ownership cycle is exactly what keeps it alive in the used market. Even as newer SUVs enter with more technology and more aggressive styling, the Highlander stays relevant because it does not create unnecessary ownership friction. It is predictable, stable, and widely trusted in real-world usage. It doesn't fade, it integrates into life. And in 2026, that trust still carries weight. Number 1. Honda Pilot, older generations. At number 1 is the Honda Pilot, not because it is the most advanced SUV, not because it leads in performance, but because it represents something that is becoming less common in today's SUV market: mechanical simplicity combined with long-term usability. Older Pilot models continue to serve families even at high mileage levels, without becoming overly complicated in ownership or maintenance. There are no extreme systems that push repair costs higher than expected. There is no overdependence on advanced electronics that create uncertainty over time. Instead, it stays focused on straightforward functionality. No complexity, no confusion, just endurance. And that simplicity is exactly what allows it to outlast many newer SUVs in real-world conditions. While the industry moves toward complexity, the Pilot stays grounded in usability. And in the long run, that is what keeps it alive. When everything gets smarter, it stays simpler. So that's the full picture of 10 dirt-cheap SUVs in 2026 that most people are overlooking right now. Some of them are old, some are basic, and some have completely moved out of the spotlight, but they're still here, still running, still proving that survival in the SUV world isn't always about being new or advanced.